welcome to the deep dive. You sent over this really detailed review of The Accountant 2, the 2025 sequel. And yeah, we're going to dig right into it for you.
Exactly. Think of this as the express lane. You get the core insights, the key takeaways, without having to sift through the whole analysis yourself.
Right, because the source materials is pretty thorough, like one of those deep dive video essays almost.
Yeah, it really breaks down the plot, themes, character stuff, symbolism, even social commentary. We're aiming to distill all of that.
Okay, let's get started. The Accountant 2, 2025. Directed by Gavin O'Connor, written by Bill Dubuque.
And starring Ben Affleck, of course, as Christian Wolff. Plus John Bernthal returning as Braxton, his brother.
We've also got Cynthia Addai-Robinson as Agent Medina, Daniela Pineda as Anais, and J.K. Simmons as Ray King.
Genre-wise, it's a action thriller, but the review throws in buddy comedy and crime drama, too. Runs about 2 hours.
So what's the basic setup? What pulls Christian back in this time?
It kicks off with Ray King, Christian's old mentor, being murdered. But before he dies, he leaves this message, like a carved clue, find the accountant.
Ah, okay, so that's the hook.
Yeah, and it plunges Christian into this whole conspiracy. It's tied to a pretty grim child trafficking operation based in Central America.
Heavy stuff.
Definitely. And he has to team up, somewhat reluctantly, with his brother Braxton, you know, the contract killer.
Right. That dynamic was interesting in the first film.
And Agent Medina is involved, too. Plus, they get help from these, like, super smart preteen hackers.
Okay.
From a place called Harbor Neuroscience Academy. And there's also this mysterious woman, Anais. So it's this mix of characters navigating violence, tech, surveillance, trying to take down this network while dealing with their own baggage.
Okay, so that brings us to the themes. The review highlights brotherhood and reconciliation. Makes sense with the Wolff brothers.
Absolutely. The review really leans into that, how the danger forces Christian and Braxton to actually confront their past, you know, their messed up military upbringing, the distance between them.
So it's about forgiveness.
Loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. How they find that again when everything's hitting the fan. It's positioned as like the emotional spine of the movie.
And then there's Christian himself, the identity, the duality accountant, and killer.
And the review says this film goes deeper into his autism. Not just the savant skills, but his struggle with emotional connection, with vulnerability.
Interesting. And Braxton has his own duality.
Kind of. He's a killer, sure, but presented as having maybe more heart, or at least a clearer code in some ways. Yeah. Seems to explore how these opposing traits exist in both of them.
Another theme mentioned is civilization versus brutality. Tell me about that.
Well, it's that contrast, isn't it? Christian's world is all order, numbers, precision. Then you have the absolute brutality of the trafficking ring.
So the film doesn't shy away from the violence. Apparently not. The review notes it's quite graphic, and that really starkly highlights the chaos and the darkness they're up against. It pushes that question of where the line is between order and savagery, especially given Christian's own methods.
Right, and then technology and control. With the hackers.
Yeah, this brings in a very contemporary angle, surveillance, AI tools the hackers use. Technology is both a weapon and a solution.
So it helps them, but it's also part of the problem.
Sort of. The review suggests it might be commenting on how much we rely on tech and maybe how the feeling of being in control is. Well, maybe it's just an illusion in this digital age.
And the last theme was autism and perception. This sounds tricky.
It is. The review acknowledges the film tries to humanize Christian, show his autism as a strength, the math genius side, but it also flags the potential issue of leaning too hard into the savant stereotype.
So potentially oversimplifying.
Potentially. It suggests it's something that could definitely spark debate about representation, you know, how neurodiversity gets shown on screen.
Okay, let's dive into the character's psychology. Christian Wolff, first, the review calls him a paradox.
Yeah, like super rigid moral code on one hand, but capable of just extreme violence on the other. His autism means he's socially detached, right?
But the sequel shows growth.
Apparently, yes. Especially through reconnecting with Braxton. That bond forces some emotional development. It's a key arc, moving from isolation towards connection.
And Braxton, he's described as the emotional counterpoint.
Right. He's more outwardly charismatic, maybe uses humor to cover pain, but fiercely loyal to Christian.
There's pride there, the review says.
Yeah, like he's genuinely proud of his brother, despite everything. That relationship is called the emotional core. He brings the humor, but also a lot of the vulnerability.
What about Agent Medina? Competent but underdeveloped.
That seems to be the take. Driven by duty, her link to Ray King, but maybe takes a backseat to the brother's story. Her role as a potential moral compass isn't fully explored, perhaps.
Ananasius, the mystery woman.
Resourceful, unpredictable, unclear motives. Adds intrigue. But again, the review suggests she's more of a plot device than a fully fleshed out character. A catalyst, really.
And the actual villains, the traffickers.
Pretty generic, it sounds like. More symbolic of systemic evil rather than being memorable individuals. The focus stays on the brothers versus the operation itself.
Okay, shifting slightly, the review talks about archetypes. Can you unpack that? Like Christian as the savant.
Right. Archetypes are like those classic story roles. So Christian is the savant, the genius, but also maybe the reluctant warrior pulled into the fight.
And Braxton.
He fits the loyal rogue, maybe operates outside the lines, but is deeply loyal. And the prodigal brother, referencing their past estrangement.
Makes sense. What about the others?
Padina is the dutiful guardian or moral anchor. Anais is the enigmatic ally, or maybe even a touch of femme fatale.
And the hackers.
They're seen as a trickster collective or New Age oracle using tech in unexpected ways. And the whole conspiracy is the shadowy empire or corrupt system. It's a way of seeing the deeper patterns in the story.
Let's talk symbols. Christian's calculators must mean something.
Oh, definitely. They stand for his need for order, logic, control in a messy world. The review points out, interestingly, that when the action ramps up, when he's on instinct...
No calculators.
Exactly. It signifies that shift away from pure logic towards something more primal, perhaps.
And the line dancing scene, that sounds unexpected.
Right. It gets mentioned a lot. Apparently it's funny, but also symbolic. Christian tries to approach it mathematically, counting steps, which shows his struggle with, just being social, spontaneous.
And Braxton encourages him.
Yeah, which highlights their connection, that growing bond. It's a moment of vulnerability almost.
What about the Harvard Neuroscience Academy, where the hackers are from?
That represents the future of intellect, but also how technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or for crime. That duality again.
And Ray King's carved message. More than just a clue.
Yeah, it's the thing that literally pulls Christian out of his bubble, forces him back into the world, back into the danger and the moral complexity.
The guns and knives seem pretty straightforward symbols.
Yeah, primal justice maybe. And that shared violent heritage the brothers have, even when they seek order, violence is sort of always there.
Visually, how does the film reinforce these ideas? The review mentioned contrasting settings.
Yeah, the sterile, ordered look of Christian's normal life versus the gritty, dangerous underworld locales. It visually hammers home that civilization versus savagery theme.
And the camera work. How's it shot?
It seems to vary. Fast, dynamic shots tracking, close-ups for the action to create that intensity, but then slower, more intimate shots for the character moments, especially between Christian and Braxton.
Is color used effectively?
Apparently so. Muted tones, grays and blues for the more civilized or office settings, then harsher, maybe earthier tones during the violent parts.
And those glowing monitors at the academy.
They add to that futuristic surveillance vibe, right? Bright screens everywhere, emphasizing how central tech is.
Okay, let's go a bit deeper. Metaphors, allegory. The review sees the brothers' journey as a mythic quest.
Yeah, like a modern quest narrative, but focused on reconciliation. They face external monsters, sure, but also their own internal demons to repair that bond.
And the conspiracy is an allegory for it.
Systemic corruption. The trafficking ring isn't just about a few bad guys. It represents something bigger, more rotten, embedded in the system.
The line dancing scene again is surreal.
Yeah, it's described as almost surreal because it's this moment of attempted connection through such a rigid, logical process for Christian. It highlights that awkwardness, that struggle to be open.
And the film's tonal shifts create a kind of emotional surrealism overall.
That's the suggestion. Jumping between intense violence, sudden humor, and deep emotional beats might feel a bit jarring, maybe reflecting Christian's own internal experience.
What about social commentary? What did the review pick up on? Family and trauma.
Definitely. Through the brothers, it seems to critique toxic masculinity, the impact of that harsh upbringing. But it also suggests healing as possible through vulnerability, through actually talking.
And the autism portrayal comes up again here.
Yes, circling back to that debate, the reliance on the savant stereotype versus a more nuanced depiction of neurodiversity. It's a recurring point of discussion in the review.
The trafficking ring as systemic evil.
Yeah, it highlights global exploitation, makes you question how much difference individual heroes can really make against such huge, ingrained problems.
And the ethics of technology via the hackers.
Exactly. Privacy, power, the double-edged nature of AI and surveillance. It puts those questions out there for you to think about.
Lastly, violence is catharsis.
The review wonders if the film is maybe subtly critiquing our societal fascination with violent revenge. Does it solve anything or just keep the cycle going?
Okay, the review also listed some companion films. What were they and why?
Well, obviously the first accountant film. Then John Wick for the lone skilled operative angle.
Makes sense.
Lethal Weapon for the buddy dynamic action-comedy mix. The Bourne Identity, lone guy, conspiracy, warrior was mentioned.
Oh, yeah, the Estranged Brothers theme.
Exactly, redemption through conflict. And Hackers for the youthful tech versus corporate corruption vibe.
So, wrapping it all up, what's the final verdict from this review on The Accountant 2?
It lands as a thrilling but kind of uneven sequel. It does shift focus effectively onto the brothers' relationship, which is a plus. Delivers on action, has moments of that dark humor. The line dancing scene is definitely memorable.
But there are downsides.
Yeah, issues with tonal consistency, maybe some underdeveloped supporting characters like Medina and Anais. And the handling of tricky themes like autism and the trafficking plot could be polarizing for audiences.
The chemistry between Affleck and Bernthal is a highlight, though.
Big highlight, apparently. That really carries the emotional weight. Ultimately, the review suggests it leaves you thinking about Christian's path. Is he really changing, or is he still fundamentally defined by that violence?
Well, that definitely gives us, and you, a comprehensive picture drawn from that review. We've hit the plot, the themes, the characters.
Yeah, all the main analytical points are covered. You've got the essence of the film's breakdown right here.
So here's something to chew on. Does the film's heavy focus on action, maybe even its embrace of violence, end up overshadowing the deeper things it seems to be reaching for, like reconciliation or the complexities of Christian's autism?
Or does it actually manage to blend those elements? Maybe imperfectly, but does it create something compelling nonetheless? That's a question the review leaves lingering.
Something for you to consider.